Hello everyone. Welcome back. Today, we've got some crucial news you don't want to miss. Let's dive right into the top financial headlines and break down what's happening. We're sharing a report from Bloomberg today, and the headline is ECB to cut faster in bid to revive flagging economy, poll shows. This is pretty big news for a few reasons. While there's still debate in the US markets about whether the Fed should cut rates in December, the European Central Bank, ECB, has already made up its mind. Instead of wondering if they should cut rates, they're focused on speeding up the process. And that's going to have a big impact on the euro's value compared to other currencies. For anyone living in Europe, planning to travel there, or even thinking about studying abroad, this is something to keep an eye on. Bloomberg's report says that after continuous rate cuts, euro deposit rates could hit around 2%. They surveyed traders, and 65% expect the ECB to go even further, making the cuts faster than initially anticipated. The goal is to try and boost the economy, which is struggling with low growth and inflation. Here's what's going on. Over the next 6 months, the ECB is expected to cut rates by 25 basis points in each of its upcoming meetings. Previously, the market thought it would take over a year to reach a 2% deposit rate, but now it looks like that could happen in just the next 6 months. The crazy part is, no one's really talking about the potential downsides of cutting rates this quickly. Right now, the thinking is just, keep cutting. So why is everyone expecting such aggressive cuts? The main reason is that Europe's economy is basically on the edge of a recession. Germany, which has traditionally been the economic engine of Europe, is already in a recession. With that in mind, the ECB really doesn't have much of a choice but to go for monetary easing in an attempt to boost the economy. Now, here's my take on this. When you look at the major economies' monetary policies, there's a clear trend. They're all trying to get back to the pre-pandemic status quo, trying to restore the economic balance and the scale of monetary policy that existed before COVID. Before the pandemic, the ECB was already implementing negative interest rates. That meant not only did you get no interest on your savings, but you actually had to pay the bank to hold your money. Despite that, Europe's economy was still limping along, with pretty low growth. So, even though traders are expecting the ECB to cut rates faster, bringing the deposit rate down to 2%, I think that's still not enough to revive the economy. It might take more aggressive cuts. Why? Because Europe's economic situation has changed since the pandemic. Before, the sluggish growth was mainly due to things like high debt levels and social welfare costs in key European countries. But now, there's a whole new problem. China has essentially outpaced Germany in manufacturing. Particularly, China's industrial sector has had a huge impact on Germany's automotive industry, which has traditionally been a major pillar of Europe's economy. This is something Europe's economy didn't face before the pandemic, and it's making things even harder now. So, when European traders say the ECB has no choice but to keep cutting rates, they're probably right. It's really the only way forward for Europe's economy. Next, let's dive into the latest political chaos in South Korea. According to the New York Times, President Yoon Suk-yeol narrowly avoided impeachment today. Here's the lowdown. After some pushback from his own party members, Yoon managed to dodge impeachment. The vote to impeach him didn't hit the necessary 200 votes it needed to pass. South Korea's National Assembly has 300 seats, and Yoon's party holds 108 of those. So, for the impeachment to pass, 8 members from his own party had to vote in favor, but only 3 were swayed by the opposition. They fell short by 5 votes. Despite the opposition's efforts and rallies outside Parliament, they couldn't get any more members to join their cause. So, the impeachment motion failed. Yoon's party leader, Han Dong-hoon, explained that they were seeking a peaceful exit for Yoon to avoid more social unrest. Han also mentioned that Yoon would be temporarily sidelined while Prime Minister Han Deok-soo would take the lead in the meantime, keeping close ties with both the ruling and opposition parties. But this isn't over. Opposition leader Lee Jae-myung is vowing to try again and is pushing for a second impeachment vote on December 11th, aiming to give South Korea a Christmas gift, Yoon's resignation. Here's where it gets even more confusing. Why would Yoon make such a reckless move? He didn't consult with his party or even with the US, who has 30,000 troops stationed in South Korea. Going to martial law without talking to the US just doesn't make sense. It left Americans scratching their heads, trying to figure out what Yoon was thinking. Even other countries are struggling to understand why Yoon acted so impulsively. But in South Korea, they kind of get it. Yoon's been under immense pressure from the opposition this year, which has led to some serious emotional strain. What's really been driving him crazy is how the opposition has gone after his wife, Kim Ki-hee. Let me break it down. Back in 2022, a pro-North Korea pastor tried to give Kim a Dior handbag, valued at around $2,000. The pastor filmed the whole exchange using a watch with a hidden camera to set Yoon and his wife up for blackmail. In the video, the pastor repeatedly mentions the bag's value, raising suspicions with Kim, who tells him to never buy such expensive gifts. Fast forward to November 2023, the pastor released the video, claiming it was a bribe. The opposition used this to accuse Kim of corruption, launching investigations into her. And that's just one example. The opposition's relentless attacks on Kim have been taking a serious toll on Yoon. It's not just about the budget freezes anymore, they're going after her credentials and investments too. The media says it's all political manipulation, and some even suspect that the pastor might have been in on it with the opposition. If that's the case, it's a huge violation of the law. Yoon's response to all this pressure? He lost it. His emotional meltdown led to some seriously hasty decisions, like calling for martial law, which left people wondering if he'd completely lost touch with reality. It's a mess, and while his emotional breakdown is easier to understand, the impulsive decision-making is still hard for many to grasp. Next, here's third key story: the situation in Syria heats up. Let's dive into the latest developments in Syria. Last week, we weren't sure if the opposition forces would really be able to make a dent, but after seeing how things unfolded later in the week, it looks like they're making serious progress. Now, global media is starting to recognize that the opposition might actually pull off something big this time. Here's a breakdown of what's going on, with 3 key reports that give you the full picture of Syria's current state. First up, PBS report. Title: Syrian insurgents have reached the gates of the capital city of Damascus, reports say. This is huge. The opposition forces have made it all the way to the outskirts of Damascus, and they've done it way faster than anyone expected. Over the weekend, the opposition surged forward at an astonishing pace. The Syrian government had to deny rumors that President Bashar al-Assad had fled to Iran. This is the first time since 2018, when Assad's forces took back control of areas around Damascus, that the opposition has reached this point. What's even more surprising is that the Syrian army has pulled out of large parts of the south, leaving major cities under opposition control. The withdrawal is a big deal and shows a dramatic shift in Assad's fortunes. In the past, he could rely on help from Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, but now those allies are too distracted by other crises. Russia's focused on Ukraine, Hezbollah's been weakened, and Iran's facing its own internal issues. All this has left Assad in a tough spot. Second, Wall Street Journal report. Title: Retreat of Syrian forces threatens a Saigon moment for Russia. This report calls it a Saigon moment for Russia, referring to the chaotic US retreat from Vietnam. The Wall Street Journal draws a parallel between the two, suggesting that just like the US lost its foothold in Vietnam, Russia might lose its strategic position in Syria. For the past decade, Syria's been crucial for Russia as a power base in the Middle East, Mediterranean, and even parts of Africa. But now, the rebel advance might undo all of that. The journal says Russia's been using Syria as a key point in its challenge to Western dominance. But if the opposition continues to gain ground, Russia could lose a major piece of its geopolitical strategy. Third, Trump weighs in. Trump's been watching the situation in Syria closely, and he's speaking up now. He's actually advising Putin to pull out, not something you hear every day. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump warned, "This is not our fight," urging the US to stay out of it. He also said that Russia's efforts to hold back the rebels are probably doomed because their focus is so split with Ukraine. Trump even went as far as to say that it might actually be a blessing in disguise if Assad and his Russian supporters are forced to leave Syria. So, what does this all mean? The situation in Syria is changing faster than anyone expected. The opposition forces are making moves that could push Assad out of power. The big questions now are, will Assad be forced to step down, and if so, how will Russia and Iran handle their retreat from Syria? The future of the country seems up in the air, with various factions not even getting along with each other. For those keeping an eye on this mess, it looks like the drama is far from over. In fact, it might just be heating up. Fourth key story: Scholz hints at teaming up with Trump for Ukraine peace. Here's an interesting piece from Barron's. It's about Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and it's got some pretty big implications for the Ukraine war. The headline reads, Germany's Scholz sees a joint Ukraine strategy with Trump. Right now, Germany's political situation is in crisis. Scholz's governing coalition has fallen apart, and they're heading into a leadership election soon. As it stands, there's a very real chance that Scholz could be out by early next year. But he's not going down without a fight. In fact, Scholz gave a speech today in which he made some surprising comments. He said, "I believe we can come up with a unified strategy for Ukraine." He went on to explain that he'd had detailed phone talks with former President Trump and his national security team. This shows that Scholz might be warming up to Trump's position on the war, especially when it comes to ending the conflict. Up until now, Scholz has been firm on supporting Ukraine, but his recent comments show a shift. Instead of just pushing for Ukraine's victory, he's now focused on ending the war as quickly as possible while ensuring Ukraine's independence and sovereignty. This clearly aligns more with Trump's position, which is about trying to wrap up the war rather than dragging it on indefinitely. In another surprising move, Scholz said that even if he manages to win re-election, though he admits that's unlikely, he would continue to oppose sending long-range Taurus missiles to Ukraine. This puts him at odds with both the Biden administration and European powers like the UK and France, who have supported sending missiles capable of striking inside Russia. Scholz is firm on this, saying he wouldn't budge, even after the elections. My thoughts on this? Germans have always been pretty cautious when it comes to military involvement, and this shift in Scholz's stance isn't totally unexpected. Originally, Germany was hesitant to send anything beyond helmets, then rifles, and eventually even some tanks. They've been dragged into supporting Ukraine, step by step, very reluctantly. But now with Trump on the horizon, they might feel like they have an ally who shares a similar view, especially since Trump's push for peace could be a good excuse for them to scale back their support. This is definitely something to keep an eye on because if Scholz aligns more with Trump, it could change Germany's role in the Ukraine conflict going forward. Finally, here's an interesting report from Reuters today. The headline is, US TikTok content creators warn followers to find them on Instagram, YouTube. This news comes after the US Court of Appeals ruled that TikTok must either sell itself to a US company or face a ban, keeping the sanctions law from Congress in place. So, what are TikTok's top creators doing in response? Some are rallying their followers to protest, while others are starting to make plans for the worst-case scenario. According to Reuters, many of these creators are making moves to secure their futures on other platforms. Why? Because they rely on those followers for income, whether it's from ads or brand deals. The report explains that after the court's ruling, these influencers are starting to prepare for a future where TikTok might not be available to them. Specifically, the court gave TikTok until January 19 to sell or face a potential ban in the US. TikTok has become a major digital force in the US, with 170 million American users. It's a platform that's especially popular among younger people and big-name advertisers. Plus, TikTok's e-commerce arm, TikTok Shop, has turned into a significant marketplace for small businesses. But as more politicians and critics voice concerns about its potential threat, some users have started to take the situation more seriously. Before Friday's ruling, many creators didn't think the TikTok ban was really happening. But now, they're scrambling. Take Chris Morey, for example. He has 470,000 followers on TikTok. He told Reuters, "I never really thought that what I've built could just disappear." He's worried about the financial hit for both small businesses and creators like him. Then there's a food and travel creator with 898,000 followers. Although he doesn't think TikTok's end is inevitable just yet, he's already telling his fans they can follow him on Instagram for updates. What's clear from this Reuters piece is that TikTok's big creators are feeling the pressure and taking action. Even TikTok's CEO has been encouraging them to rally against the ruling. But as of now, there's no major protest wave forming. We'll have to wait and see if any big anti-ban campaigns pick up momentum in the next few days, especially with the support of top creators. For now, it's still too early to tell if this will blow up into a major issue, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.